Hello and welcome to the GM overview for the Triumph of the Tusk Adventure Path for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. For those new here, my adventure overviews are divided into two parts. In this first video, I will discuss the themes and general story of the campaign, and although there will be spoilers, I am going to try to avoid major plot twists and events, especially regarding the adventure's final act. This is so GMs can get an idea of what the adventure is about, but not spoil so much that they wouldn't be able to enjoy the adventure as a player should they watch this video and then decide not to GM it themselves. The way I envision these adventure overview videos to be used is for GMs to select the Part 1 videos for a few different adventure paths they're interested in, and then only watch the Part 2 video for the one of those that they are most interested in GMing. And if you're a player and not a GM, then this video is not for you. My next video will be for those GMs who want more information. There I will present my personal thoughts about the adventure, as well as full context for parts of the story that are missing from the Part 1 video. In the Part 2 video, I will also answer questions that are posted to the comments section here. And before we get started, I should mention that Paizo did provide copies of these books. Triumph of the Tusk is a 3-book adventure path that takes players from 3rd to 12th level. This campaign takes place roughly 1 year after the War of the Immortals, which resulted in half of the Orc pantheon being killed and the God's Reign that was caused by Gorm, God of War's death. This is a time of great uncertainty for the Orcs of Belkzen, with their priest power waning and everyone in Orc society struggling to process these changes. Book 1, The Resurrection Flood. The adventure begins a few weeks before an annual tradition among orcs known as the Flood Truce. During this time, snow from the mountains above melts and causes a flood to flow down into the dry lands below, temporarily turning them into a riverbed. This brings forth a brief but explosive period of plant growth, which in turn draws in herds of aurochs that the orcs rely on for food and leather. Nearly every orc tribe establishes a camp along what they call the Flood Road, and tradition holds that during this time, all the tribes put aside their differences and grudges against one another and enjoy a brief period of peace and prosperity. During this year's Flood Truce, the most notable leader among the orcs, Ardax the Whitehair, plans to forge an alliance between the numerous tribes to defend Belkzen as a whole against a looming threat to all orc kind. Roughly 5 years ago, a powerful lich named Tar-Baphon, also known as the Whispering Tyrant, escaped from his prison and renewed his war against Lastwall and the surrounding area. In the past, the Whispering Tyrant has used orcs as foot soldiers in his many wars against the living, but when he summoned the orcs of Belkzen this last time, the orcs sent back the severed heads of his messengers with his written proposal shoved down their throats. Expectantly, this triggered an undead invasion of the orc lands, which those lands did survive, but Ardax the Whitehair knows the Whispering Tyrant will not cease until the orcs are destroyed for their insolence and wishes to unite the orc tribes against a future invasion. To that end, Ardax has invited dignitaries from a number of holds, as well as numerous outsiders, to a place he calls Torrentmoot to meet and discuss his plans for an alliance. And this is where the players come in. The PCs have each been invited to attend the Torrentmoot. They can come from virtually any walk of life, they can be orcs themselves, or representatives of non-orc societies that Ardax wishes to align with. But they must have the skills or influence that Ardax needs in order to have been invited. This is one of the reasons why the campaign starts at 3rd level instead of 1st. The PCs arrive a few weeks before the expected flood, and the first section of the adventure plays out in sandbox style with the players getting to meet and socialize with other dignitaries and the orcs. This uses the reputation subsystem to track the players' influence as they build connections with the NPCs. After this, the players will face a few different quests such as hunting aurochs, defending the camp, solving puzzles, and searching for missing children. After a few weeks of completing tasks to show off their strength, courage, and ingenuity, the players' reputation points are totaled to represent how impressed Ardax is with them. By this point, the players will likely be the talk of the camp and trusted by the orc leader. When the time of the flood finally comes, everyone hikes up the mountain for a good view of the event, but perceptive players might notice something feels a little off. There are no animals in the area, not even birds. And magically inclined players may feel a hint of necromantic energy in the air. When the flood finally arrives, it doesn't herald the return of plants and life to Belkzen, but instead brings death. Where the waters flow, an army of undead rise from the ground. The players and everyone else at the site must rush back to the camp to evacuate as many people and livestock as possible before they're overrun by undead. This plays out in a couple of forms, starting with a variation of the chase rules where the players overcome obstacles to earn chase points, the final total of which determines how much time the expedition has to prepare before they have to flee the area. This will also influence how many caravan points they can generate, which represent the amount of supplies they have, as well as the group's morale. If caravan points drop too low, people will leave the group. The number of caravan points also impacts the encounters the caravan may face. For example, if they're very successful and have an abundance of supplies, the caravan will be targeted by bandits. This journey takes 4 or more days depending on how well the players deal with challenges, and each day brings with it a new encounter, most notably a storm of necromancy caused by the sudden animation of countless spirits in the area, as well as the storm chasers who follow. The third chapter of the adventure opens with the caravan arriving at an orc fortress at Cleft Head Hold. Unfortunately, the fortress does not welcome the refugees with open arms, but instead barred doors. A few days before their arrival, the leader of Cleft Head expelled most of the orcs there out of the fortress and closed the gates, ensuring those most loyal to him are protected inside, while the rest of his people are forced to relocate to a nearby village and fend for themselves. This cold reception leads Ardax to seek assistance from the players, and he asks them to investigate the fortress. This uses the infiltration point subsystem as the players seek to enter the keep by overcoming a series of obstacles, such as climbing walls, subduing guards, and sowing discontent among the keep's inhabitants. From a game mechanic perspective, their goal is to accumulate as many infiltration points as possible while minimizing the number of awareness points they earn. And the first book of the adventure path concludes with the players seizing control of the fortress. In addition to the adventure, this first book contains supplemental material covering the Orcs of Belkzen, new items, and a new archetype, the Tattooed Historian, whose tattoos animate to share history or imbue the historian with traits relevant to the stories those tattoos depict. Book 2, Hoof, Cinder, and Storm. The second book of the adventure opens with the players traveling from Cleft Head Hold to another orc fortress called Urgir that was once a dwarven sky citadel. There they are welcomed warmly. They're respected for their contributions to Belkzen in Book 1 and granted a meeting with the Orc War Council. There they treat with members of several different orc factions and discuss several key issues such as the sudden resurrection of dead orcs, the undead storms that have appeared across Belkzen and neighboring lands, the status of the other orc strongholds including where their loyalties lie, and the matter of securing provisions during this crisis. This is not simply for show or exposition. The choices the players make here will impact later events in the adventure. Following this social encounter, the players are tasked with traveling north to meet with a faction of orcs known as the Storm-Screamers of Rull. They've not been heard from since before the flooding, and as some of the most renowned druids and experts on nature and weather in Belkzen, Ardax is keen to connect with them. But as a nomadic orc tribe, finding them is not as simple as traveling to a city or keep. Instead, the players will need to scout an area to find the Storm-Screamers and their herd of aurochs. This uses the victory point subsystem to track their progress rather than a map. Each day plays out in phases where the party will face obstacles and need to earn enough points to overcome them and continue their journey. Once they overcome all these challenges, the players will locate one of the Storm-Screamers' campsites and make contact with their leader, Regnet the Green. Regnet is open to meeting with Ardax, but asks the players to first help him clear a tower of troll invaders so the druids may use that site for a sacred ritual. Once the players clear the tower, Regnet arrives and informs the players that a few of their Auroch herds have been separated and are in danger of being overrun by a horde of undead, and he asks the players to assist the Storm-Screamers in bringing these herds to safety. Similar to how the buffalo was important to many Native American tribes, Aurochs hold an important place in Orc society, and managing the herd is both important and challenging. The chase rules from GM Core are used to move the herd and keep them ahead of the following undead hordes. The players have a narrow one-obstacle lead on the undead at the start, and every round where the undead catches up to them, a portion of the herd is killed. 6 obstacles are presented for this chase. Once the herds are safe, the PCs can return to Urgir with ambassadors from the Storm-Screamers. After some downtime, the players are summoned by Ardax, who informs them that emissaries he had sent to Blisterwell have not returned and he would like the players to travel there and investigate. Blisterwell is a vertical city built into an old dwarven mine, and they will need the mine's iron to aid in the coming war with the undead. And to make matters worse, Blisterwell has long been divided between 2 rival orc holds. Half the mine city is controlled by the One-Eye Hold, and the other half is controlled by a group of orcs from the Darklands known as the Haskadar Hold. When the PCs arrive, they discover that not only has conflict reignited between the One-Eye and Haskadar orcs, but agents of another orc hold known as the Unbroken Horn has sent agents and reinforcements of their own to Blisterwell. And this is especially troubling as the Unbroken Horn stands in fierce opposition to Ardax and has aligned themselves with the undead invaders. At Blisterwell, the players will be able to align themselves with one of the orc clans and begin a series of tasks to undermine their enemies and the Unbroken Horn. These tasks include weaponizing some local wildlife against their enemies, clearing out a haunted mineshaft that connects 2 of the city districts, and reclaiming a forge from the hands of the enemy. This culminates with the assault of an underground fortress controlled by the Unbroken Horn. And with the Unbroken Horn dealt with and some semblance of order returned to the city, the mines and forges of Blisterwell pledged to support Ardax's cause. Not long after, another clan of orcs known as the Gutspear Hold arrives at Blisterwell seeking aid. They've recently come under attack by Shoanti invading from neighboring Varizia. The players agree to assist, and in exchange the Gutspear will support Ardax. Making contact with the Shoanti is not a simple matter and plays out using investigation points earned by making relevant skill checks to track the Shoanti. Eventually, the players will make contact with the Shoanti and even come to their aid once they realize they have an enemy in common, a cult dedicated to the dead orc god Zagresh. They learn that the same phenomenon that raised undead in Belkzen has also manifested in Shoanti lands. Specifically, one of the bizarre undead ancestor storms, like the one the players encountered during their caravan exodus following the flood to the fortress of the Cleft Head Hold. This undead storm has formed over a battlefield where several Shoanti heroes gave their lives, and the Shoanti believe that the orcs of Belkzen are to blame. The players may engage the Shoanti leaders in peace talks that use the influence system played over a 5-round social encounter that can end with the players aligning themselves with the Shoanti to face the necromantic ancestor storm together. In this, the players will face significant weather hazards and an illusory battlefield before they can begin a ritual to calm the storm. This ritual is met with resistance by the battle site spirits, and the players have an opportunity to resolve this conflict through wit, words, and compassion rather than swords and axes. With the disaster contained, the players return to Blisterwell with letters pledging Shoanti support to Ardax Whitehair. In addition to the main adventure, this second book also includes 3 optional mini-adventures intended to be played by the players using a party of different characters, preferably all orcs. These mini-adventures help illustrate what's happening elsewhere in Belkzen away from the primary party's adventures. Each of the mini-adventures should take between 2 and 5 hours. In the first mini-adventure, the players take on the roles of new recruits of the Whispering Blades, Ardak's Whitehair's intelligence-gathering organization. They have 12 hours to identify foreign agents in Urgir and deal with them. In the second mini-adventure, the players are hired to travel to the frigid north of Belkzen to assist the Ice Tooth Hold in preventing stampedes of megafauna from damaging their settlements. And in the third mini-adventure, the players are hired to rescue a team of Black Sun Scouts from a pair of rocks. Book 3, Destroyer's Doom. Back in Urgir, the players meet with Ardax and the War Council. It has become clear that the Orcs of the Unbroken Hold have aligned themselves with Tar-Baphon and a cult dedicated to the dead god Zagresh, and they must be crushed. With the players' influence, the War Council must decide the best route to take to move their army north to the Unbroken Horn's stronghold. To make matters worse, the drylands beyond the Flood Road are covered by another ancestor storm. Given the players' recent success dealing with one such undead storm, they are called upon to lead a group of Orc ritualists to subdue this one. To do this, the players must travel to the heart of the ancestor storm and defeat manifestations of the storm's rage to calm it enough for the rituals to disperse it. The victory point system is used to track the player's progress as they navigate into the haunted storm, and 5 obstacles must be faced to earn enough traversal points to succeed. At the center of the storm, they will contend with yet another haunt and undead battle to finally break the storm. Following this, the way is now clear to move Ardax's armies against the Unbroken Horn. The player's next task is to infiltrate into the Unbroken Horn's capital of Wyvernsting. To accomplish this, they first need to make allies of an Orc hold at the Sea of Sand, who will then smuggle them into the enemy city. Once inside, they must investigate and gather intel using the awareness points system to track how suspicious the locals are of the players. 3 events trigger at different awareness point thresholds, ranging from being harassed for visiting the wrong neighborhood to having their cover completely blown and revealed to be agents of Ardax. While trying to avoid accumulating awareness points, the players will have opportunities to score sabotage points to weaken Wyvernsting's defenses before Ardax's army arrives. 13 pages of the adventure are dedicated to this infiltration. A few examples of what the players can do to weaken the city include establishing a base of operations, rescuing agents from a prison, disabling the city's war engines, and assassinating a key enemy leader. Once Ardax's army arrives outside Wyvernsting, the time for infiltration ends and the battle proper begins. The adventure doesn't use mass combat rules and instead uses the ongoing battle as a backdrop while the players act as a team of specialists to aid the larger war happening around them. And the opposition that they and Ardax's army face is weakened according to the number of sabotage points they earned during the infiltration phase. The battle itself uses 4 fairly major skirmish events for the players to complete and include breaking the defensive line outside the city, storming the fort, which uses the victory point subsystem to measure overall success with the battle as a whole. A few different activities are provided for players to influence this, like rallying the troops and destroying siege engines. Assuming all goes well, the armies of Ardax the Whitehair will seize control of Wyvernsting and crush the Unbroken Horn beneath their feet. And all that remains is to deal with Tar-Baphon's allies and free Belkzen from the undead invasion. And that's where I will end this overview. As is my tradition, I like to save the campaign's final act for the second part of my Adventure Path overviews, where I go fully into spoilers. But in addition to the adventure material, it might be worth noting that the back of Book 3 also includes rules for Wyvern animal companions, 4 new spells, and a handful of new magic items. So there you have it, an overview of Triumph of the Tusk for prospective GMs. I will be following up this video with another that shares my personal take on the campaign, so be sure to share any questions you have in the comments below, and I will try to address as many of those as I can. Just please keep in mind that I have not played this campaign, I've only read through it, so I may not be able to answer some things such as encounter balance. The second video will also discuss some of the spoiler material I omitted from this video. And as always, I want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who supports me, whether that's by clicking the like button, subscribing to the Patreon, or subscribing to this channel. Thank you for all of your support. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.